Hello, welcome to Figments in Time. This is going to be a sniglet. I'm going to talk about one certain day that I really loved. And this was a day I rode Expedition Everest more than 50 times. I've done it twice. One time I think it was like 51, the other time was 58. And they both work about the same way. And it's the funny part about doing such a challenge for yourself is that there's a lot of factors that go in. One, you just have to stay at that ride the entire day. And you have to know, how much you want to do and how much you're willing to sit through. And there's a few aspects I want to talk about. One is, the math of time. Two is how much fun is it to ride a roller coaster that many times, and what keeps you going. And then, three, would I do it again? And why would I not do it again? So let's talk about the math. I was told originally that the record was like 102 or 105, something like that. It was over 100, but it wasn't like 170. It was 100 and something. And that 100, I'm looking at this and I'm like, that's not possible. On my best time, I typically use a medical access pass, and I'll admit that if that figures into my records or my number of times I do a ride in a day. And it doesn't figure into this. At the time I was just using a scooter, and I think I used a medical access pass at the time. And I rode the scooter over, and as long as I'm walking, as long as I'm moving, as long as I'm not standing still, and as long as I can get out of line, I can walk through the line. So I use a single rider line, and because it moves a lot and you sit a lot, it's not too bad. I do have to take breaks occasionally. I've had my hip replaced a couple times, I've had my knee replaced a couple times, and it eventually wears down on me. And sometimes you just say, this day I'm going to suffer, and then tomorrow, right, I'm not getting out of the scooter the entire day. I'm a lot better now. I haven't used a scooter in a few years. That's not why I haven't tried this in a few years. I'll get to that in a minute. But I started doing the math. It takes about 7 minutes. The ride takes about 4 minutes. And it takes a good 3 minutes if nobody's in the single rider line to stop off the vehicle, jump out, go right about in without running, because we don't run at Disney World. They'll yell at you. And I walk back around, get into the queue, stand in line, wait for the next person. Even if you get right on, it's right at 7 minutes. So you start doing the math, that's no more than 10 times an hour. There's no more than 8 or 9 hours a day at the time, there was no more than 8 hours a day at Animal Kingdom. Then they increased the hours, and now they've decreased the hours. So you start going, there's just no way that's possible. And then you think, well, if they've got this record, you're not going to beat the record. Is it even worth it? So that's where it comes down. Is it just for fun? Is it just for personal best? And I didn't really set out to break any records the first time I did it, nor really the second time, other than my own. And the first time I did it, it was like, oh, I'm at 16. I've ridden this thing 16 times. Wow, is this fun? And let's move on to the second part. Is it fun? And the answer to that is yes and no. There's a few things that make riding the same roller coaster over and over fun. One is the single rider line. You start to meet people, and you start to have people to talk to. Well, there's people who are also doing this, maybe not to the same level. I didn't see people in the entire day and we became like best friends or anything. But I did find people doing this for like 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours. And I saw some people coming back around after time, and we would laugh and joke about, here we are again, let's do this. How's it going? And we're all just bonding over the fact that we love this ride and how great it is and such. And we're all waiting for that magical thing that you're waiting for with a single rider line. The thing that Slinky Dog Dash has just destroyed. And Slinky Dog Dash does such a better job. I mean, they have absolutely the best queuing system now, where they have a line for odds and the line for even number groups, and then they can just fit you in, and they do a really good job. It's better than a single rider line overall for everybody's experience, but it's not as better for those of us that are ready to ride some rides, man, because lots of people ride by themselves. And what's fun is when you get with a person who has been standing in line for like an hour, and you've been in the line for like 13 seconds because you knew about the single rider line. You go, have you heard about the single rider line, dude? And he's like, that's a good idea. And then they're part of the crowd that you talk to for a little while. And then they go away because nobody else is stupid enough to ride this thing 50 times in the day. I'm just saying, it's the truth. So that's fun. Then the ride itself, and then the you hear the person who gets in line and says, I'm by myself, can I ride in front? And if you want to ride in front, or you want to ride in back, you want to ride in the middle, wherever you want to ride special, they put you into a special little queue right by the single rider line, usually in most any ride. They do it at rock and roller coasters as well. And they hold you there until there's, the next rotation, then they put you in the front. And sometimes there'll be a queue of people queued up to ride in the front. Because Expedition Everest, the front is the best. I'm just absolutely the best. But then you get on the ride and you do your fronts, you do your backs, you do your middles. You get in the middle of families, which is fun. I mean, I've been in the middle of a lot of family pictures. I should probably, when I'm editing this together, I will definitely put in a few such pictures for a little bit of fun. But so you get in the middle of the family pictures, you laugh with the families and they talk and you see people and you see the quiet ones and the noisy ones and the people that are doing the cymbals and the rocking and rolling, and you're just like, 3, and you're holding up 2 fingers for 52 and whatever. Because you lose count. I started keeping a spreadsheet on my phone, and I would write down what time. That would help me do the math for how long it was going to take me to get to where I wanted to. Because you also have to figure in things like restroom breaks and food. On my last time, my wife, who is not feeling very well, actually brought me food, and I just chowed down between runs. And then the saddest time of the day is about an hour before close. They usually close down single rider line, and then you got to get back into the normal queue. So finally, why is it fun? It's fun for the very same reason that all the other rides are fun. It's fun as a challenge. Sometimes you'll end up standing in line. You'll get 3 rides an hour, and it'll be, sad and get frustrating when you're trying to do more, and then you watch for things that get slower. Sometimes it's sad because it rains in your middle of these things. I've tried about maybe 7 or 8 times. I live like 8 hours away from Disney World, so we don't go that often. So you can only go so often. You only try so often. It's kind of miraculous I was able to do 2 days of 50 or more. And then another thing that makes it fun is if you ever get on a coaster and you're trying to ride it more than a few times, you start to feel the coaster. You can do things like close your eyes and visualize where you're at. That's one thing. Space Mountain did Hyperspace Mountain once, or not Hyperspace Mountain. They did. It was like they turned the lights off on Space Mountain, and so you couldn't see, and you could still see just a little bit if you have sensitive enough eyes. But honestly, if you just close your eyes on any coaster, you can do this. Close them tight because you don't want to feel any. You don't want to know that you're in a tunnel, and you don't want to know you're coming out of a tunnel. But it's there's that. If it's a looping coaster, and I have one other coaster I've been able to ride multiple times, or 52 times on the Tennessee Tornado, and it does 3 loops, and you can look to the left, look to the right, look up. I've done that on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. It's kind of fun. You notice things moving along, and you're like, oh yeah. If you're motion sickness, a little bit of a warning: don't look to the left or right on a looping coaster if you aren't prepared for the consequences, because you will actually watch the world turn upside down and go around. And it's a beautifully glorious experience, but it could also lead to maybe lunch reviewings, and you don't want that, especially if you've also eaten a large breakfast. But that's another story. Not for me. I don't get any motion sickness yet. Occasionally my eyes will cross, but no motion sickness. All right, so it's worth it for that reason. Even if the ride gets a little boring, and it does, I'm not lying. After a certain point in time, you're like, I've done this before, I've felt this before. And Yeah, so there's that. I will also say, be careful of making your favorite ride boring. Because while I still love Expedition Everest, and I will still ride it 4, 5, 6 times a trip, no matter what, I find that after that, it's got to be a chance to ride it 20, 30, 50 times, or I just do something else. And that's probably good, because as much as the Animal Kingdom is not the most exciting, the most thrilling park at Disney World, it is also beautiful. There's trails, there's animals, there's that big tree of life thing you can walk around, and there's trails in front of it, all sorts of stuff to see at the Animal Kingdom, and you know, the safaris and Pandora. I mean, that's just an amazing place. Finally, the question comes, would I do this again? And the answer is, of course. Why would I not do this again, right? It's a fantastic experience, riding over and over and over. But it's a lot of work. It is tremendously more than your average experience, because there's food, there's water, there's bathroom breaks. All of that figures in. And I usually have like a couple of breaks that I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to do this meeting, then I'm going to go get something. And then you're like, but there's nobody in line. And do I really want to miss out on that? Because what about lunchtime? Will they get busier after lunchtime? What about the parade? You know, there's no parade at Animal Kingdom, but by parade, I just mean, like, you know, whatever's going on. So there's a time, right, to do this. I absolutely want to find more time to do this. Since the pandemic, I've been pretty lame about my riding. I've been very walk around and enjoy the scenery-esque about the whole experience. So I hope so. The medical stuff I'm going through right now is supposed to allow me to ride more thrill rides. But I could already ride things at Disney. If you're a larger person, that's one of the things that Disney's always been really good at. Even when I was really close to 500 pounds at 6 foot tall, there was nothing I couldn't ride except for like Pandora and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Those were the two big things that were painful. And Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is more of a leg size than a girth around your stomach size problem. It's just, you guys slam them legs in and you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done to myself to get in this thing? And there's lots of pictures of me on Seven Dwarfs Mine Train with this, like, and it's hard to tell whether I'm having fun or I'm in pain. I did it 10 times in a row one morning at a breakfast thing, and it makes my wife dizzy. So that's her vertigo. It makes her dizzy, but it does me as good as I can possibly. I love the ride. It just hurts because of the leg size thing. And I got some nerve damage in the side of my legs. I'm a mess. That's all I'm saying. I'm sitting here holding my medical equipment on my shoulder. It's what straps for. I'm just a living mess. But again, I just wanted to talk. This is the end of my little story here. That, you know, try it sometime once we're back to normal, and the parks are busy and such. You know, try your favorite ride and say, what if I did this a bunch of times? Would I have fun? And just see. We're talking about doing a Muppet-a-thon in October, possibly, where hopefully Justin Monorail means this, right? Where we sit down and we just go we go watch the Muppet Show all day long. And that's not quite as thrilling as Expedition Everest. But, you know, it's the hashtag Save the Muppets. But it'll be fun. I mean, anything you do, there's a comedy theory where you do something once, it's not funny. You step on a rake. The rake gag is one of those things. You step on the rake gag, it smacks you in the face, and you go, ha, why is that funny? Somebody just got hit in the face with a rake. You do it again and again and again, even if it's something that isn't funny in and of itself. About the 10th, 20th, 30th time you see this in a row, it's funny, and you don't know why it's funny. And you just laugh at it. Well, that's, in some respects, some things are like that because of this kind of, I don't want to say pathos. I'm not ethos, mathos, mathos. I think that's probably some sort of math OS, but so just try it, give it a go, see what happens. It would be fun one way or another. All right, so this has been Figments of Time. That Figment in Time mostly happened, just like I said. Not everything's as perfect or as great as it sounds, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.